Why do we?
I bet chat
want
knows.
people to not know that Eric's doing Kermit the Frog impressions?
Kermit the Frog here. It's not easy being Greg.
Oh, no, it is not. But what it is easy to do, let's talk about football. Today, a one-game NFL slate. We just got another fire Thursday Night Football game. Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, reminiscent of last year, where the NFL decided that the Denver Broncos needed to be on 100% of NFL primetime games. So back to that situation, we got Russell Wilson playing in primetime on the road in Kansas City against the Chiefs. So the Chiefs favored by 10.5 points. We'll be breaking all of that down from a DraftKings, FanDuel, and Owner's Box perspective coming up here. The only thing we're going to ask of you guys is to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps us out a whole bunch. We appreciate it. Helps keep our content free. And oh, by the way, already right out of the gate here, shout out to Chris Williams supporting us by gifting out 5 YouTube memberships. People who are watching in YouTube, Chris, thank you. Appreciate the support. We are sponsored today by Owner's Box. If you guys want to check out Owner's Box, sign up using the link below, because when you do, you get 1 free week of our NFL package here over at Stokastic.com. So our contest generator, Sims tools, and then all the stuff that you guys are familiar with as well, like player projections, ownership projections, that is all included when you get 1 free week of our NFL package. Eric, what's happening? How's your week going?
Week's going good. Got a good matchup show in with Loughran this morning. Got to hang out with my friend Jordan Klein, the best producer in the game, named Jordan Klein. It's overall been good. I started yesterday just because, again, I'm in my little house out here, free from the wife and puppy, where I can kind of get everything done and watch sports all day. But started working on my NBA sheet, which is kind of like wild that we're back. And I haven't gone through and done every single roster on a team since I believe it was April. Like beginning of April was the last time that we had like these massive slates. So updating rosters, figuring out who's playing for who. Probably play a little bit of preseason, not today because, well, we're focused on this. And then there's an MLB game that I'm focused on as well. But it's just good to have NBA coming very, very shortly. Less than 2 weeks now, my friend.
Yeah, it is going to be a week from Tuesday where we got the NBA starting up last night. Josh and I did a first look at the DraftKings pricing. And on the show, I said that, hey, we would talk about FanDuel, because people usually get upset if we talk more about DraftKings than FanDuel. And I said we would like to talk about FanDuel, but we couldn't because there was no pricing out. And then FanDuel dropped their prices this afternoon. So I haven't really looked at the FanDuel slate yet. I've looked at the DraftKings slate because Josh and I broke it down last night.
I bet it's soft.
Yeah, and Josh, it was soft all over, especially the top.
Especially at the top. Especially.
Excuse me?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
You sure? I didn't hear it. You should do that again. Fucking cool, man.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, pal.
Really cool. Yeah. Excited for NBA to be coming back, where Eric and I were going over the basketball schedule, and him and I, we're going to be hanging out a lot because we've got the NBA live before locks. We got the post-lock show, and it's going to be Eric and I doing it together Mondays through Thursdays. So get ready for more of this dynamic duo every single night, hanging out, making weird noises into the microphone, talking about whether Josh's penis is soft all around or not. All of that is going to be
soft in the middle, loud on top.
Do the noise again.
So soft.
All right. Cool guy Eric over there. Really,
Jordan Klein's like so cringe, bro. Dude, bro,
I mean, me too. I got douche chills from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, but we're working through it. And then we got this football game to talk about as well, where, listen, I'm not going to ask you who's going to win, Eric, because we're both going to pick the Chiefs relative to the spread. Chiefs are favored by 10.5 points.
Yes.
Too much, too right, too little. What do you make of the spread?
There's a beautiful song by Ben Folds. Judy, could anyone be loved any more than I love you? Does it hurt you too? It's probably going to hurt me, but Denver Broncos, I have so many of them looking at my builds. I'm really trying to flip the script. It's supposed to be windy AF out there. I don't really know how to factor that in. It's baked into the projections as is. So, I mean, for me, it's just trying to get different with some of my builds and do things that other people aren't doing. And one of them is just playing more Denver Broncos and not trying to like look at this insanely diluted wide receiving core from Kansas City and trying to overexpose myself, which again, overexpose myself, soft in the middle. There you go.
There we go. Hey, there's only one way to know for sure, and that is to show your work, prove the evidence. So So that'll have to wait until after the show ends because
Yep.
for only reasons other than like, YouTube flags and the different, you don't want to get a strike on YouTube and then you have to explain that it was, not really European, like whatever it is that could potentially lead to strikes on YouTube. We try to avoid around here. The game, I'm going to go with the Chiefs minus 10.5, mostly because of a disdain for this Denver Broncos team, the amount of times that I've seen them in primetime games over the last year, and the fact that we've seen Russell Wilson time and time again suck in these primetime games. The one bet that I actually do have for this game, which I posted on Twitter, Eric, is under the assumption that the game ends up playing out about to what the spread is. The over-under for pass attempts for Patrick Mahomes tonight is 35.5. Really big number. I like the under on that just because if the Chiefs end up winning this game by 10, which is about what the spread is, like how much are they going to have to throw the ball in the fourth quarter? So Patrick Mahomes under 35.5, courtesy of Odd Shopper. That was my favorite bet that I found of the day.
Well, I was going to say, but in that same vein, my favorite play is the under of 6.5 receptions for Travis Kelce. So we're kind of thinking in line the same thinking where a guy who just sprained his ankle, he came back in, he looked good, but a sprained ankle doesn't really feel bad until a couple days after the fact. And then you're a 10.5 point favorite. It's windy out. There's like a lot of things that make me feel as though we need to short him in some capacity. And I think from a DFS perspective, it's impossible to get away from him because from a skill position set, he's going to be the highest projected guy. You're going to want exposure, but under 6.5. I like that we're kind of we're simpatico on that. I like the under of that for Mahomes as well.
Yeah, and then as well, if you guys have any questions for us over the course of the show, hit me up in Discord. I've got that open. If you guys are a Stochastic member and in our Discord channel, you could always at me whenever you want, and I could hop in there and answer those questions. So go ahead and ask those questions if you have them. And just because I kind of wanted to answer a random YouTube chat as well. No. Matthew S. says, my wife's sugar daddy is pounding the Broncos money line tonight. Thoughts on the money line?
On the money line?
Yeah, I only
want that he is pounding. Okay. No, I don't like it.
So I will say this, Matt. It's interesting, Matthew asks, because my wife's boyfriend is also betting the Broncos tonight. Huh.
Interesting.
Food for thought.
Man, you're sharing is caring.
Does this mean that the guys who are betting the Broncos are these the hardest of the group? Is that what we're taking away from this?
Oh, they're not the softest, I will tell you that.
Yeah, I have no interest in the Broncos money line today.
Zero.
I do get it. It's Thursday Night Football. Weird shit happens on Thursday Night Football. It's a short week. Maybe Travis Kelce, actually, in all likelihood, Travis Kelce is not 100% for this game. So I do think that just the fact that you have a wide line on Thursday Night Football, you can make the case for Denver, but not the way that I am going.
But the line, that's different. I have this as like 87% on the Kansas City side in terms of like opportunity to win this one. 87%. That's not reflective in the 13% being implied odds here. What is the money line currently? I'm trying to pull that up here.
I'll go to Odd Shopper. I'll see what the best.
That's where I am right now. Going there. It's just taking a second. Plus 475. So in terms of implied odds, something tells me that is not going to convert out very, very nicely. Plus 475. That's 17.39%. That is a 4% discrepancy between me and what I have listed and what the implied odds are. You get into these wide spreads, and it's almost always beneficial to the books because they can extend it on both sides without getting too much flack, and you should just be staying away.
Yeah. Some rough bets from our significant others' boyfriends, it appears. So we'll stay away. Rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs today.
Well, they didn't get brought on board because they were smart.
No. They got on board for other potential enhancements and other things.
Slam your body down and wind it all around like it's the Spice Girls.
Quarterbacks, Eric. We've got Patrick Mahomes. We've got Russell Wilson. That's it, because we're not going to be talking about backup quarterbacks here. They're very clearly going to be different. Like, this isn't a scenario we're choosing one versus the other, which is often what we're going down for some of these showdown slates. So more so, I think we have to talk about these quarterbacks separately as opposed to talking about them together. My most rostered player on this slate by a mile, Eric, is Patrick Mahomes. Yep. My DraftKings lineups, I have Patrick Mahomes as my most rostered captain. I have Patrick Mahomes also as the player I get to the most in the flex spot. Yep. He is nearly unanimously in my lineups. I have him north of 90% of lineups. If you guys watch the videos I did on the contest center and the Sims tool earlier in the day, I had north of 90% of Mahomes on both FanDuel and DraftKings. As the day has gone on, not much has changed. I now have less than 90% of him on FanDuel. I have exposure to him in the 80% range, but still a lot of Patrick Mahomes. He's my most rostered player on the slate. If you guys are playing one lineup, you're playing Patrick Mahomes in it. If you're playing three lineups, you're playing Patrick Mahomes in it. I think you'd have to play like 20 lineups until you start to consider not having Patrick Mahomes in one or two of those lineups. How important is Patrick Mahomes to your builds, though, Eric?
Very. He is utility ownership around 61%, captain ownership around 16.4%. I'm above on both of those numbers. 19% in the captain spot as it stands right now, which, again, I can leave or take. I'm very curious who you're getting to the most in the captain spots. I think that that's a very fun thing to talk about. What?
Mahomes.
Well, I'm saying other than Mahomes. I'm curious who number two is for you. If it's just going to be Travis Kelce or if it's going to be the guy that I'm going to be jamming in Isaiah Pacheco. But I am looking at utility ownership, Patrick Mahomes. I have him in nearly 100% of lineups when you combine that. 19% in the captain, 68% in the utility. Yeah, there's a couple without him where it's like extreme builds, 5-1s, 4-2s, just for the sake of being different out of 150. But there's really no need to get cute. Patrick Mahomes is the highest projected player here by far. He's been the best quarterback in the NFL now for 3 seasons. Don't get cute.
By the way, somebody in chat, this is Esoteric Hominoid, says you guys are the most awkward host at Stochastic. It's just sexual attention. There's nothing. I mean, that's really all it is. Just some sexual attention here, there. It comes up from time to time. But yeah, it's very hard for me to get away from Patrick Mahomes today. And he's my most rostered player by a lot. The other thing that kind of also makes it easier to get to Patrick Mahomes is there's not that many other expensive guys that I'm like dying to play for this particular slate that I even view as being comparable to Pat Mahomes. If you look at our projections, for instance, here, we have Mahomes projected for 23.09 fantasy points. The player who's closest to him is Travis Kelce at 18.54. So that is for DraftKings projections. We've got Pat Mahomes 4.5 fantasy points more than any other player. And then over on FanDuel, we have Pat Mahomes even a bigger gap. He's projected for 22.18 fantasy points. Russell Wilson, 15.82. So we're looking at 6.5 fantasy points between him and every other player. Just nearly impossible for me to get away from Patrick Mahomes. Love getting to him. Don't really have a case to do anything else. Play him, single entry, whatever contest you're in. I think it makes sense to roster him. Captain spot and also in the flex spot as well. On the other side of the game, what are you doing with Russell Wilson?
Playing him in the utility quite a bit, not really getting to him in the captain spot, even though it's pretty neutral that we have in our tools. 9.1% captain ownership, 9.3% captain optimal percentage. But there's leverage to be had here in the utility, and I just prefer getting to his pass catchers if I'm going to try to make anything work here. I'm not sure what to make of Javonte Williams' workload right out of the gate. They have had Jordan McLaughlin, I will remember you, just playing decent enough that I think he can still get mixed in on some of these snaps. And Javonte Williams, not the best projection for him here, but he has no injury designation. I think you're just going to end up playing these pass catchers on the Denver side when you're trying to get unique. So Russell Wilson, he's somebody that I just prefer for the utility. I don't think that that's some kind of a hot take, though.
I like Russell Wilson as a contrarian MVP on FanDuel. He's not going to be all that popular in the MVP spot on FanDuel. We're looking at sub 10%, at least as far as the game script goes, right? Like Patrick Mahomes is clearly way superior to Russell Wilson. But if you get into this scenario where the Chiefs are up 17, 21 points or something in the fourth quarter, it's just going to be Russell Wilson throwing into prevent defenses. And I think the game script just sets up really well for a couple things to happen in the later stages of the game. The Broncos to be throwing the football and the Chiefs to be running the football, which is why when I look at my MVP exposures, captain exposures, there are 3 guys that I really like getting to as the MVPs and captains tonight, Eric. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Russell Wilson, it's Isaiah Pacheco. And the one that's really low owned for today, at least on FanDuel and our projections, is Russell Wilson. So I think that that is a spot that I really like getting to because of what the game script is. So I get well overweight to Russell Wilson. And that is where I've had some of my most success building lineups this year in the contest generator for these single game slates, is when I've been contrarian at the MVP spot on FanDuel. If you just have somebody who isn't, and like Patrick Mahomes is still the player I get to the most in the MVP spot, and some of those lineups that don't have him though, I like Russell Wilson, where I just don't think people are going to be clicking that button, where the game script is pretty favorable to him. So Flex spot, I'm about neutral to the field on him. I'm overweight to him in the captain / MVP spot, though.
Yeah, I don't mind that for FanDuel purposes. For DK, where I'm going to be playing today, I really don't have a lot of interest for Russell Wilson there. I like that Pacheco is somebody else that you have some interest in kind of around the board there. It sounds like FanDuel and DK, but Pacheco is going to be my number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes, somebody that I absolutely love for this game when we get to the running back spot. But I definitely can see a case for Russell Wilson over on FanDuel. You're also just targeting some of those touchdowns. If he's responsible for 2 of them, possibly 3 of them in an outlier game script, you're going to want him, and you'll just kind of take your shots there as opposed to Mahomes.
And another thing, too, is if you look once again at our projections, where over on FanDuel, where you only get the half point for the PPR bonus, the scoring is a little more favorable for quarterbacks for that reason. We do have Russell Wilson projected for 1 more fantasy point than Pacheco for tonight, but Pacheco is nearly 3x the ownership over on FanDuel at least. So that's where, once again, Russell Wilson, contrarian MVP option I like getting to over there. Only 2 quarterbacks to talk about, but anything else you want to add about these guys, Eric?
No.
All right. And just because it's coming up in the chat as well, there is an expectation of some windy conditions. Is that impacting your lineups in any kind of real significant way?
I mean, it's so hard to say, like, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. From a betting perspective, when you have a line and you're trying to project it in a bubble, like you're looking at it on a neutral field or a neutral arrowhead under neutral circumstances, if it grades out decently well and then you get the added bonus of like Travis Kelce's ankle being bum and possibly a game script where it blows out, and then there's also wind, like there's factors that can help me fall into that kind of certain line of thinking. But I'm going to play pass catchers. You're going to play pass catchers. Inherently, you're just going to play them in some capacity. You can't look at the wind and say that, oh, somebody just completely is out of play. Now, there's also a difference between side wind and then is it going to be strictly downwind, or are you going to be throwing into the wind? Like, there's just so many factors that are so difficult to define. If you want to take like a small projection dip on something where you don't think it's being allocated correctly, that's one conversation. But I don't know how to go about doing anything to account for it other than just saying, yeah, maybe there's a game script where it's so much worse than what we expect, and you can just build out for the most boring conditions. But, you know, unless it's like, Laffy brought it up on the matchup show today, unless it's something like the Buffalo New England game where it just gets completely bonkers with wind and you can't even throw the ball, you're still going to have Mahomes and Russell Wilson throwing the ball.
Yeah, remember that? That was the game where
it's insane.
Mac Jones went 1 of 3 passing for the entire game, and they just ran the ball every play.
It was absolutely insane. It was obviously Ramondre Stevenson. Who was the other back that they had? I think he's in Buffalo now.
Damian Harris.
It was just the 2 of them.
70-yard rushing touchdown that game.
It's unbelievable. And you wanted kickers though, because there was somebody had the kick where you were able to just be straight downwind with it or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you could not kick the ball into the wind.
And some news relevant for this weekend is that Deshaun Watson will not play this weekend. So just kind of throwing that out there in case people are watching this and maybe setting your lineups for season-long leagues or something like that. Deshaun Watson will not be out there for the Browns this weekend. Let's go ahead and start talking about the running backs here, Eric. And one thing that I do think we at least have to consider with the wind is Pacheco is a good play based on game script, right? The Chiefs are favored by double digits in this game. We're expecting them to win. We're expecting them to win comfortably, which as is sets up as a nice game trip for Pacheco. Now, if you also add in the other element of what happens if it's windy and teams can't really throw the ball, it's just another angle for Pacheco to succeed in. So I'm getting to a bunch of Pacheco. He actually is my most rostered skill position player on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Isaiah Pacheco, I love getting to him. I think he's a great captain option. There are 3 captains / MVPs I really like today. Talked about it a second ago. Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Pacheco, the skill position one I'm getting to, which if you guys could start doing the math, it means I'm a little bit underweight to the field here on Travis Kelce for tonight. If I'm favoring other players in the captain and MVP spot, Pacheco, seems like you're on the same page. What do you like about him tonight?
He's facing the worst rushing defense in the entire NFL by every single metric. It's a defense that's giving up nearly 35 points a game, 187.6 yards per game on the ground. That's worse than the NFL as well. you're talking about a player that is getting all of the workload as well. You have CEH, a distant, remember me, sad to see him not really pan out for this Kansas City team because God knows that they need more players. They're not good enough, but it's insane. If CAH had worked out as a bell cow back for them, how good they would be. But Pacheco can be that guy. Jerick McKinnon will mix in on third downs. That's a given, but he is going to be getting like all of the touches here. We saw against Minnesota 16, 20 against the Jets. I mean, you give him 16 to 20 touches here in this spot, he should absolutely smash.
Yep. I mean, that's how I see it as well, based on my exposures. My most rostered skill position player on the entire slate. Is he also your most rostered skill position player, or is there somebody else who might be making it into more lineups for you?
Nope. Definitely going to be Pacheco because I'm not looking to short Travis Kelce. That's not the right way of looking at it because I do have Travis Kelce, but I am lower to the field on him, both in captain and utility ownership. I will not be like even half the field of him, but just a little bit above that as it stands right now. I'm not going to say that I'm worried about the angle, but there are just so many runouts where maybe he doesn't smash the way that, he's currently projected for. And I think Pacheco having a huge game, that would be one of the main things that could facilitate that. You just see him go out and smash. You get a game script where it's 21, 24 points going into the fourth quarter. And why would you push Kelce in that spot?
Any other Chiefs backs that you're getting to? We've got Jerick McKinnon. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It looked like in the Chiefs' first game of the season that CH was going to play a pretty significant role because he started the first game. He got all the touches on the first drive. And I was thinking like, oh boy, like if you drafted CEH as your last pick in best ball, you're just going to crush this year. And he's kind of faded away ever since that first drive. But CEH, McKinnon, either of them at all important to your lineups?
Jerick McKinnon, I will probably just get a little bit of just for the sake of being different. In the event you have Denver miraculously not get eviscerated by Chris Jones, just repeatedly getting after Russell Wilson, there are possibilities where Jerick McKinnon has to be on the field for a little bit more. I'm not going to do anything to keep him and Pacheco out of lineups together because I think they both have upside. And obviously, it's more price dependent here for Jerick McKinnon. It's probably a little bit of game script dependent, but Pacheco can still do enough where I don't want to be removing the two from being in lineups together. But I think he's really the only other guy. CEH, I have absolutely zero interest. If you're not going to play Pacheco, there are always opportunities to say CEH is going to get that running field or that backfield in the event that he's out. But don't forget in the playoffs last season, Jerick McKinnon, they just basically played him in a 3-down role for a lot of it at times. 2 years ago, that for sure was kind of the case instead of having CEH out there. So really no reason for me to try to take shots on him, I don't believe today.
Out of 150 lineups on DraftKings, 150 lineups on FanDuel, I have a total of 3 with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then as far as Jerick McKinnon goes, it's just hard for me to trust the workload there because he hasn't gotten it at all. And when he has, it's been in the passing game. And I don't really think this is a game script that's super favorable for the Chiefs to have to be throwing the football. What sucks for McKinnon as a fantasy asset is here's where I think he would get the most workload. Is a game where the Chiefs are trailing in the fourth quarter. He's going to be playing those. There's going to be a game where the Chiefs lose by a touchdown or two and McKinnon gets targeted like 8 times in catch-up mode where the Chiefs are trying to put points up on the board in the fourth quarter. But just what game are we ever going to have where the Chiefs are going to be underdogs and we're going to expect that as a game script? It's just not something that's ever going to happen. So I just don't see myself utilizing Jerick McKinnon based on what his role has been so far this year. If you look at how many, maybe you know this off the top of your head, maybe you don't. How many rushing yards do you believe Jerick McKinnon has this year?
Do I believe Jerick McKinnon has?
Yes. How many guess?
I'll say
Jerick
20.
McKinnon. He has, pretty good guess, 21 rushing yards for the entire season.
There you go.
Almost none.
I just went to a round number that was low.
Through 2 weeks, he had -2 rushing yards. -2.
Yeah.
Last week,
But I mean, he gets mixed in even in these spots where they're up because he does get goal line work from time to time. Chicago, he got 2 goal line touches where they both resulted in receiving touchdowns. So Jerick McKinnon still has utility. Again, I'm not going to do any kind of a grouping to keep him and Pacheco out of lineups. I believe Pacheco still had a pretty decent game against the Bears in that spot, rushed for a touchdown himself. Didn't have like a super ceiling, but 15.8 DraftKings points in it alongside McKinnon. Yeah, you would have wanted McKinnon over him there, but it would have been so hard to land on. more of like a late slate type play on those kind of slates. But as I'm looking at this specific showdown slate, I think Jerick McKinnon, maybe it's really tough to pass the ball. Well, don't you want short and intermediate targets then? And Jerick McKinnon fits the bill for that. If there are any kind of like issues Kansas City has getting the ball downfield, trying to take shots to Rashee Rice, God forbid MVS. I can't even talk about that guy, but definitely some utility, I think, for Jerick McKinnon beyond what you might be planning from the get-go.
So the Chiefs running back usage is somewhat easy to figure out. You never know, like you said, when Jerick McKinnon might score the stray touchdown, but by and large part, we know Pacheco is going to be the guy.
And there's also the fact that there's no DJ Jones out there, who's really the only run stopper on this defensive line for Denver. You look at his PFF grades, he's been pretty solid overall this season relative to other Denver Broncos, like a 61 grade. He's basically middle of the road, but he's basically out there to stop the run. And now he will not be on the field, and he will be replaced by Mike Purcell, who is awful. He came out of Wyoming. He's a rookie, and he has not panned out here for Denver so far. So I just want to throw it out there. Pacheco, even better opportunity for him going forward.
It's like I was saying, we know what the Chiefs running back usage is going to be. It's anybody's guess what happens on the Denver side of the game, because you've got Javonte Williams, sits out last week. He was injured, never expected to play, doesn't really end up being out there. I didn't even think he was going to play this week, but now he's going to be active. I have no clue what to expect from the workload of the Broncos backfield. Could you guide me in any kind of direction with confidence, Eric? What are you doing with this backfield? Because as of right now, I'm just underweight to all of them.
There's a part of me that wants to jam Javonte, because I think people like you, people like me, look at it. We see the projection. We're basically saying he's not going to get the full workload. And again, Jordan, I will remember you. McLaughlin was very, very good coming out there and making plays at times there. He was the main rusher for this team, had 9 rushing attempts against the Jets, came out and added some receiving volume as well. But Samaje Perine, no matter what, is going to be playing those third down roles for the Denver Broncos. That is what he is there to do. There's a part of me that wants to jam Javonte. I can't talk myself into it here yet, as of yet, but he practiced in full the last 2 days. That kind of indicates to me that he could just be super fresh coming into this game. And if he is, this is a game that's going to have some kind of win implications. Whether that's like a 5% decrease or what, again, I can't really evaluate it. I'm just going based off of our projections, but part of me does see it and just want to jam him, play him absolutely everywhere. And then you're getting a super undervalued back that, if he were healthy coming into this spot, would have been projected around 14 fantasy points, 15 fantasy points, would have been a low end RB2 for year long. I feel like this is a spot I wish I were more confident in that read. It's kind of a risk. How much risk are you willing to inherit on a play like that? I think it could really pan out for you, though, in the event that you just guess correctly.
He's so expensive, which kind of makes it. By the way, I wasn't sure whether to correct you or not. It's a Jaleel, not Jordan. You've got basketball on your mind.
What? Oh, Jaleel. Oh, yeah. No, I'm thinking of my point guard. I told you I was working on my NBA sheet, and there's my Timberwolves, man. I tell you, it's going to be a weird year.
The problem I have with McLaughlin is the price point. He is so expensive. He's $10,000 on FanDuel. He's $7K flat. Yeah, $7K flat over on DraftKings. And he just doesn't project all that well for us. We have Javonte Williams projected to be the starter. We have McLaughlin projected to get touches. We have Perine projected to get touches. So as a result, I'm just underweight to all 3 of these guys. I can't prioritize any of them. Of the group, I get the most of Javonte Williams just because I think he's going to get the most workload, but I'm still well underweight to the field on him. So we've got Williams projected for 22% ownership on DK in the flex spot, and in the captain spot, 4% ownership. So overall, like nearly 30% of the field is going to be playing Javonte Williams on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Williams is projected for 19% ownership in the flex spot and 4% in the MVP. So a little bit less there, but still 25% on FanDuel, nearly 30% on DraftKings. It's a number I can't quite get to. So I'm underweight.
Son, I'm literally just talking out loud. I'm not even having a take. I didn't have a take. I just said that it would behoove you to guess correctly. There's a part of me that wants to jam in the event that he gets all of the workload. That's not even a take. That's literally me talking through process. You absolutely small-minded newt.
How else would you describe other parts of his body? Soft,
That's all.
perhaps?
No, that's it. Soft little brain cells that just an awful take by Eric. Oh, the keyboard. Oh, shut up, Sean.
Yeah, I agree with Sean and I disagree with Eric. So once again, Sean, I know you made this offer before, but if you're available for NBA season, the job is yours. I could fire Eric in an instant. I could replace you as my co-host.
Just an awful take by Sean V. I'll just be here, I'll be like it'll be like at the end of Dodgeball. Fucking Chuck Norris. Just me sitting there with my tummy, eating a bag of ice cream.
There's only one fair way to really go about deciding this. If Jaleel McLaughlin, who Eric has stated is the best play in the history of DFS, if he ends up in the optimal lineup today, Eric keeps his job. If he's not in the optimal lineup today, it's Sean Vid.
Filler prefers gift.
Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anything else you want to talk about at the running back position?
Called dude a newt. Yeah, I don't know. It's what came to my mind. A minnow, if you will. Small little tiny baby fish in a big, big sea.
By the way, a Black Goku in the chat said, who peed in Eric's Cheerios? That was me. He requested every morning for breakfast. Anything else at running back?
Sterile, and I like the taste. Speaking of dodgeball.
Lots of asparagus. It's just strong scent.
Oh, God. I literally tasted that just now when you said that. It was not enjoyable. Don't say stuff like that.
That's a liar. You liked it. Wide receivers. This is just impossible from the Chiefs side of the game. When you start talking about these Kansas City wide receivers, because we know that the guy who's going to be getting the target share, the bulk of it, nearly every game is Travis Kelce. I don't know exactly how much the ankle is going to bother him, but when he first got hurt last week, it looks like a really significant injury and dodged a bullet because it ended up being not all that significant. But now we've got this scenario where it's a one-game slate. We have to in some way consider some of the wide receiver pass catchers for the Chiefs. Now, it's hard to give any of them a real vote of confidence, Eric, but which wide receiver from Kansas City do you have the most exposure to tonight and why?
Justin Watson. Kadarius Toney. Those are the two. I have like the identical amount of them. Everybody's going to play Rashee Rice. Everybody. He had 21 targets over the course of this season, but Kadarius Toney's only 2 behind. He's at 19. Justin Watson sitting at 16. If it's going to be diluted, play the ownership game. Like for me, this just comes down to, Rice wasn't even on the field 50% of snaps last time out, and he's going to be the person that I've just seen on Twitter over and over and over and over and over and over, like a Marshawn Lynch type situation. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And so for me, I get it. 20% utility ownership, trying to make him a thing. It's fine. But like Kadarius Toney came over. He's been awful. We've made fun of him at times. He is sitting at freaking 4K. I have to play a lot of him. I don't really have a choice. I'm eating so much crow over MVS the last year and a half. I'm in so much pain, so much shambles. At least I didn't take any of him in best ball this year because I realized he's out there running wind sprints on the outside, now playing less as well as he should be. He's been very ineffective with this football team, but it is Kadarius Toney and it is Justin Watson for the sake of getting different, mainly because I think you can leave a lot of salary on the table going to him. And he's got currently 16% utility ownership. At 2,200, if I'm trying to leave salary on the table, just give me the 2 guys that are going to be on the outside there. And Rashee Rice, if he goes out and beats me, he beats me. Such is life.
I can't remember a slate where there was no real chalk at running at wide receiver. The most rostered wide receiver on the entire slate for DraftKings is Courtland Sutton, projected for 25.4% ownership in the flex spot. It's
incredible. Really it's a great tournament slate. Again, I'm telling you, because of box scores, because of everything else, Rashee Rice is going to get steamed beyond steamed. It's just coming, and you can feel it. It's just a question of it doesn't feel good to click anything else below him, but you have to just find ways to get different. So for me, it's leaving salary on the table, getting to, God forbid, Noah Gray ends up panning out. On the call we had earlier today, you and Lofty at the same time, just who's the contrarian guy who's going to randomly catch a touchdown? Noah Gray. And I'm like, oh, God, please don't let this be true. But I'm going to play a lot of Justin Watson. I'm going to play a lot of Kadarius Toney. I am going to probably be in shambles after this show.
Jordan, clip that. You know what I'm talking about. So for me at wide
Oh
receiver, I'm
no.
getting to a lot of
Oh
Kadarius
no.
Toney. It's been the case all day since I did my content this morning. I had Kadarius Toney as my most rostered wide receiver from either side of the game. It is still the case now as well. He's super cheap. People aren't rostering him by and large part, right? He is 8% on FanDuel, 20% on DraftKings. So for at least a one game slate, it's not all that much ownership that's going to Kadarius Toney. And of all of the wide receivers for the Chiefs, I think he's the most upside. His odds of hitting that ceiling are fairly low because he's been terrible for a lot of the year. But he is a guy that the Chiefs get creative with the play calls for. Once they get down into the red zone, we see them draw up different kinds of gadget plays for. Sometimes it's Kadarius Toney, sometimes it's Jerick McKinnon. If I want pass catchers to pair with Patrick Mahomes, and we're kind of echoing the similar sentiments here, I think that Kadarius Toney is the guy with the most upside relative to his price and ownership today. He's the wide receiver from both sides of the game that I have the most exposure to.
Whoa, from both sides. From both
Yeah.
sides. That's wild. Yeah, for me, I have a lot of Jerry Jeudy. We will see how this goes for me. I bet poorly, but if I'm not going to be playing Travis Kelce, I am playing Travis Kelce. But if I'm going to play less of Travis Kelce, getting to Jerry Jeudy is kind of where my money is going towards him. Isaiah Pacheco at 9,400, both sitting in that same range. If I'm trying to get different in GPPs, I think going to Jerry Jeudy and the captain, that's going to be another path that I take, even though his captain optimal just at 4.2%. Again, a lot of that is because you look at the implied total here for Denver. I mean, they are not projected to do a whole hell of a lot, but those touchdowns are going somewhere. Jerry Jeudy is the main target here, even with Courtland Sutton playing much better this season than he has in previous iterations, especially last year. Not since his rookie year have we seen Courtland Sutton playing this well. So I will still be with you where I have a lot of Kadarius Toney, but I'm going to have a little bit more Jerry Jeudy.
And then we've talked about Kadarius Toney. You've echoed your sentiments here on Rashee Rice, somebody who you don't like quite as much as the field does. You think he's going to be a little bit higher on than projected. You think he's going to get steamed up. Are there any other Chiefs pass catchers you're getting to in any kind of meaningful way, or a take you have on any of them?
Yeah, so what... I mean, Justin Ross is a dude who's out there once in a while. And anytime we've seen this in so many Chiefs showdowns, whether it was Noah Gray, whether it was, CEH out of the middle of nowhere trying to guess on the backfield, whether it was Blake Bell or somebody of that nature, Justin Ross, he's not playing like any snaps whatsoever, like none. But in terms of targets, he's been targeted 6 times, MVS at 11, McKinnon at 12, Pacheco at 13. Like you're going through some of these targets and Justin Ross at least has been there and he's getting absolutely no ownership. So he's just the large field guy to get to. But I will say you got Sky Moore and Noah Gray both getting 15 targets. And you brought up Noah Gray earlier. I looked into him a little bit after our call because I really wasn't getting any of him. And I've started to change my tune a little bit. I think that he might be a really good contrarian piece sitting at 4,400. You've got the kickers at 4,800 there for Butker. So from the Kansas City side, you've got Will Lutz 4,200 for Denver. If you're trying to get different there and get away from some of that ownership, I really don't hate getting to Noah Gray now either.
Talk about the tight ends in a little bit. By the way, like I just threw a name out when we were on the call before. I'm not like actually playing Noah Gray today. But as far as wide receivers, like Kadarius Toney is somebody in that price range that I do like. The other one too, also Justin Watson. It's just he's very cheap. He's not picking up ownership. There is some touchdown equity with Justin Watson. He's $2,200 on DraftKings at low ownership. He's $6,500 on FanDuel at low ownership. I think 8% off the top of my head. I'll double check that though. 11% for Justin Watson. Same deal though. Very, very low number. I think he's a very easy guy to get overweight to the field to create more salary for us. And the other thing too is you could have one of these games where let's say Mahomes is a big game and Travis Kelce is the number one receiver for the Chiefs. Pretty reasonable scenario. And then maybe Pacheco has a big game as well. You're going to need some place to save salary with. And Justin Watson's just somebody who's pretty easy to fit in as one of those salary saving options. So even if he isn't the most targeted receiver in the world to what you had said, Eric, he is still at least on the field for some snaps and he has some of that big play potential because he does get targeted when he's out on the field. Anything else you want to talk about from the Chiefs wide receivers? If not, we'll move on over to the Denver pass catchers.
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered all of the ins and outs for Kansas City. You're going to get to the flip and you're going to be surprised by ownership in some capacity. It is impossible to understand exactly where the field's going to go. I think because of box score results, I think because of projected what we've seen just in terms of targets. Rashee Rice has been the most targeted of the wide receivers there when it, even alongside Kelsey, they're sitting with 37 targets. Rashee Rice has been the most targeted of these wide receivers, but it's not by much. And that's where I think the ownership is going to get extended on him. And we have an opportunity to get some really low owned pieces here. I'm making Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney my two priorities because of it.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the Broncos pass catchers between Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. And I know they're not exactly the same price, but I think we kind of have to talk about them in the same breath because I don't think it's very likely I'm going to have very many lineups that have both Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. On the whole, I am underweight to each of them for me personally. But if you had to roster, or if you could only choose to roster one of them, would you be prioritizing Sutton or Jeudy tonight?
I'm going to prioritize Jeudy because, again, I like the builds as I'm looking at my 3 max builds as well. I'm getting away from Kelsey in 2 of those lineups, and I have more money to be spending. And then Sutton, because he's sitting there at the cheaper tag, 7,800. I think a lot of the Mahomes plus Kelsey lineups where either one of them is utilized in the captain. It's just a lot easier. You're going to like the look of it, whether you're using an optimizer, whether you're using the Sims tool, or whether you're hand building. You're going to like the look of it with Courtland Sutton in it. And that makes me want to just jam Jerry Jeudy in this spot. There's obviously been trade discussions, whether those are factual or not, about Jerry Jeudy, Carolina. That would make no sense to me at this point. You should want to be as bad as possible if you're Carolina. Denver should want to be as bad as possible too. But if Jerry Jeudy can bring back something nice, fire it off. Sean Payton needs to basically rebuild here. But Jerry Jeudy at 9K for this specific slate, I think less people are going to be able to get to it because of the salary implications of Mahomes and Kelsey and Pacheco. So for me, that ends up being a little bit more Jerry Jeudy. Courtland Sutton, I'm about even with the field with, and that's just fine by me as well. I still haven't decided exactly how I'm going to land, but Javonte Williams, if the slate started now, I'd be a little bit over on him amongst some of these expensive guys. And it's just because if you're lower on Kelsey and you're not going to be jamming him like the field is, you've got money to go around.
We have a question in Discord from Just Locks. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but Justin wants to know Rice or MVS tonight, Eric?
I mean, I can't even believe that I'm going to have to not say MVS in a 2v2 of one guy who gets no targets, but I do kind of prefer Justin Ross at even with it.
No, Rice or MVS.
Oh, it's Rice still by a mile.
Yeah, Rice for me.
Maybe I'm not that crazy. No.
He asked Rice or MVS. I have a feeling that Justin meant Ross, though. I have a feeling.
Got it. Because I was going to say, I was just expecting it to be close in that range. But I mean, MVS is sitting at 3,400. It's just that MVS is playing less and less and less every single week because he should be. 65% of snaps. He was still the guy who was on the field the most, but that is drastically different than playing every snap like you had at the beginning of the year. He's just never getting targeted. He is running absolute wind sprints out there, whether that's because there is no trust in him. And MVS is still live to go out and catch a deep ball. He can still go out and get that done randomly. He still has the frame, still has the speed, but for some reason, there's just no looks going his way. So I will probably side with the Rashee Rice side.
Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out another 5 YouTube memberships. It's Rashee Rice for me as well, Justin. If you didn't mean Rashee Rice, you meant Justin Ross or somebody else, follow back up in the YouTube chat. But he did ask us Rice or MVS. For me, on the question I had asked you, Eric, which was Jerry Jeudy versus Courtland Sutton, I'm getting to more of Courtland Sutton over on DraftKings because he is cheaper. On FanDuel, I get to more of Jerry Jeudy because he's cheaper over there. So on DraftKings, we've got Sutton, $1,200 cheaper than Jerry Jeudy. On FanDuel, Jerry Jeudy is $500 less expensive than Courtland Sutton. On both sites, I'm underweight to both of them, but I just like the cheaper one on each site, which is kind of what makes sense to me. If I'm going to be underweight to each of them at their ownership, then the one I'm going to be prioritizing on each site, if I have to choose between them, is just the cheaper one that affords me some salary savings. Are there any cheap wide receivers that you like getting to from the Denver Broncos?
Man, we got to talk about Marvin Mims in some capacity because he's had two absolutely nuclear box scores, absolutely smashed in week 2 and week 3 with just deep balls, nothing else. He is an electric playmaker, but for some reason, Sean Payton doesn't seem to believe so and isn't watching the same football as us. And that is a little bit frustrating. It is what it is. I don't really know how to account for it. But at this point, he's the third highest targeted guy. Brandon Johnson's still been targeted, one time less, even though he's been on the field way more. Lil Jordan Humphrey's still out there running routes. I don't quite understand it, but this is Showdown. These are tournaments with 150,000 plus entries. If you're trying to get different, I think finding ways to get off of either Judy or Sutton and just going to Mims, somehow, some way he ends up having the big play ability. He can do it also in like designed handoffs. I think that there's a little bit of Rondale Moore to his skill set where he can just take, or not Rondale. Yeah, Rondale Moore. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Where he could just take it to the house. And it wouldn't surprise me. It's just a question of them calling those specific plays and actually being on the frickin' field as opposed to playing less than 25-30% of snaps. So will be TBD, but he is definitely the kind of game-changing player that you want to be overweight to, I think, on a slate like this.
I was looking for, because I have it saved somewhere on my phone, the clip of you saying nuke from the show from last NBA season. So I wanted to pull that up to play it right as you were done talking to me when you said nuke, but I couldn't find the clip anymore. I'll have to dig through Twitter to find it because I would like for the start of NBA season just to have like a couple of Eric clips that I could play for my phone as sound drops. I've had this on my mind as of late.
You've been busy. Actually, That's not funny because you're probably the busiest person out of anybody in content here.
So there's a couple of clips I want to play that I have in the back of my mind. The new
Don't you dare pull up K.
Yeah, you already know it is because I sent that in our Slack channel not all that long ago.
You had that like on demand too.
Yeah, I have because I know exactly when I tweeted it. I know where it is on my timeline, and it's a good clip of the time that kicker of K Hunts left us a super chat, and Eric read it all as one word a little bit incorrectly, and it was magical. It was magical, and I think that we should be.
And then your voice goes, "What? What?" It was incredible. Yeah, you reached like choir boy octaves.
It was not something I was expecting to say in the middle of the show.
It was not something I was expecting to say in the middle of a show, and here I am.
Both of us had very funny reactions because you go, "Whoops, whoops," and yeah, I turned into a 12-year-old.
It's absurd. And then he sent a super chat later being like, sorry.
Like, keep it coming.
Funny.
Kicker of K Hunts. I want some super chats from you this year for NBA. If you're out there, I want to read it and we'll see if we can get Eric to say her name again.
Nope.
Wide receivers for me, I'm with you, Marvin Mims. If we're going to play one guy for the most upside relative to the price point on the Denver Broncos, Marvin Mims, $4,600 on DraftKings, $7,500 on FanDuel. It seems whenever this guy touches the ball, he makes big plays happen. The problem is that his quarterback sucks. The Broncos don't seem to like playing him. He's on the field. They don't throw to him a whole bunch. But when he touches the ball, he makes shit happen. And that's kind of what we look for sometimes on these one-game slates. So Marvin Mims, the cheapie that I like from the wide receiving core of the Denver Broncos.
So we're kind of building similarly in some ways. And then we have like certain points of differentiation. And I think that that's a good way of, strategizing. Like, what is your corridor? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the tournaments you're playing in? And like, these should all be things you contemplate rather than just like, what are the plays, bro? It's a one-game slate. But Marvin Mims has proven when he gets the ball that he can do ridiculous things that are pretty unquantifiable. Well, actually, they are quantifiable. They're really damn good. Just pay attention, Sean Payton.
I think this is a pretty interesting question that I really like a lot from the YouTube channel. So I'm going to read it off to you, Eric, to see what your response is, and then we'll talk about the tight ends here. We have Matt Murphy is asking, who is the dumbest captain that could work in a large field GPP tonight?
Ooh.
If it's so what's funny? Either by IQ or by actual results, I think the answer is the same. I think it's Kadarius Toney. I think he's the dumbest player that we could roster in the MVP spot or a captain spot that could have a big game. And then also from a standpoint of you look back on this and just be like, why the hell did I play Kadarius Toney in the multiplier spot if it goes poorly? I think he's the answer.
I think it's CEH just because if something happens whatsoever to Pacheco, there's a chance in a windy environment that CEH just becomes like the first and second down guy, and he's facing the Denver Broncos that are just horrendous against the run. So like, obviously you need some things to go your way. I'm not saying go out and get injured, but like maybe Pacheco just doesn't have it, or he does tweak something for a second and comes out for a couple snaps, and you get an opportunity to have all of the studs in the game, and CH comes in, gets a goal line carry, gets in the box, scores a touchdown like he did against the Bears in week 3. You know, where all three of those guys put up double-digit fantasy outcomes, CEH, McKinnon, and Pacheco. I would go CEH as like the dumbest one.
Okay, I'm going to go with Kadarius Toney as my option. And by the way, Pacheco gets hurt, those CEH lineups could be looking pretty good, which, you know, that happens from time to time in football. We see players get hurt. We've got a few minutes left to go here, guys. But one thing I'm going to make sure you guys know is when Eric and I finish the show, which is going to be about 8 minutes from now, don't go anywhere. We got Live Before Lock with Loughran and Neil Orfield right after this. And before they do come up, I want to tell you about the best money-making opportunity that you guys are going to find tonight. Maybe it's playing Kadarius Toney or CEH in the MVP spot, but the realistic answer is probably not. The real way that you guys can make some money that's guaranteed tonight is signing up at Bet365 using the link that we have below. Because when you sign up at Bet365, you place a $5 bet, and they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets. Doesn't even matter what the result of that initial bet is. Win, loss, whatever. They're going to give you $150 in bonus bets. All you have to do is sign up using the link that we have below, place a deposit, place your first bet, get that $150 in bonus bets. They're currently only operating in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, and Kentucky. But if you're in one of those states, take advantage of this offer now. Don't leave some free money on the table. Take advantage of it. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Tight ends here, Eric. The only one I'm really getting significant exposure to is Travis Kelce. I'm underweight to the field on him, not because I have any real issue with Kelce. It's more just a price point issue. And I have more exposure to Russell Wilson. I have more exposure to Patrick Mahomes today. It leaves Kelce as the odd man out for me. So underweight to him, nothing like insanely crazy underweight, but the field is rostering Kelce in. Let me pull this back up. So we've got Kelce projected for 16% ownership in the captain spot. He's projected for 44% ownership in the flex spot. And on the whole, where the field is about 60% Kelce, I have 40%. So coming in underweight to field on Kelce, slightly preferring paying up at other spots. Where are you at with Kelce relative to the field?
I'm underneath. I'm both in the captain and in the utility. Talked about it a little bit earlier. In my last run, let me pull this up so that I'm not just spewing BS. Let's find it here. There we go. Travis Kelce sitting there with 31% in the utility. So he's at 43.6% in our last run. And I have 10%, almost on the number here, 9.9% in the captain. So I am underweight in a decent amount to Travis Kelce here. Just think that there's a number of ways where at 11K, I kind of want to get exposure to other pieces. You do have a wind environment, although you've had a really low ADOT here on Travis Kelce so far this season. Short intermediate routes, he's still going to be able to gobble those up if it's windy, and I'm not necessarily worried about that. But let's say it is windier than we expect, and everybody is having difficulty passing it there. Travis Kelce, downgrade. Maybe the ankle, they don't have to push him, downgrade. Maybe there's a blowout and they want to just do a little bit more on the ground, because there's a lot of ways you can beat this Denver defense, specifically running down their throats, because everybody's been able to do it. Less to Kelce. So like there's just a case that I can make for Travis Kelce where I just want to be a little bit lower to him. Normally I'm the stand where I just jam the Mahomes Kelce side of things and then try to figure out the rest of it later. I'm kind of taking a little bit of a different approach, kind of freaking me out for this slate.
So first of all, Devin Neiman wins the YouTube chat for the day. Shout out to Devin Neiman. I can't read that comment during the show, but it made me laugh. And Devin, you win gold stars for the day. You guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for Devin Neiman. He's a winner for today. I like his speculation on what might be causing injuries for Travis Kelce, and it's an interesting conspiracy theory to say the least. As for Kelce and what I make of him relative to ownership, there's a lot of risk involved with the ankle. And I just don't think that any of that is being taken into account into what his ownership is, right? So it's a scenario where if you get a fully healthy Travis Kelce, I think he smashes today. But the problem is that the field is just playing him as if he's 100% healthy. There's no issues with him whatsoever. We just don't know that to be the case. He had to sit out part of the game on Sunday because he had the banged up ankle. He came back. He looked pretty good. But oftentimes we see with these ankle injuries, they're worse a couple days after when they first happen because of the swelling builds up. It could be sore for all those reasons. So,
well, Kelce, and also they're going to have 10 days to be able to put him on ice here after this. So that's the only thing that like has me in the camp where it's like, I don't want to fully fade Travis Kelce. That would be kind of silly and foolish and not what I'm planning to do. But like, they could just utilize him in his regular role and know that he has 10 days to recover. But like, is that even necessary against Denver? It's going to be a little bit game script dependent. And I just think I'm going to make more money in the long run being a little bit below on Travis Kelce here on this kind of a slate and trying to get more of my Kansas City pass catchers that aren't him, more of the Denver spend ups, trying to get different on this slate just because of all the circumstances around him.
Kickers, we've got the potential iffy situation with the wind. How is that impacting what you're doing with the kickers and the defenses as well? Only a couple minutes left, so we'll just group them together.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison Butker, I'm a little bit underneath the field on 24.6% in our last run for the utility ownership. I have 0 of him in the captain. I have 0 of either kicker in the captain here, him and Will Lutz. I am getting to just about the field here on Will Lutz, sitting at 17%. He's at 16% in our last run. I think that it's a difficult thing to account for. After this show, I'm going to pay attention to see if it's like a side wind or see if I can find something going on where that can be factored in a little bit. I know kickers just from them talking about it. We have Jay Feely who does CBS all the time. You prefer to have into the wind or downwind kicks. You don't like the side winds. You don't like necessarily having it playing across the field. In Arrowhead, I'm not necessarily sure how that ends up panning out, but not something that I think I need to go crazy trying to figure out. Just going to take a glance at it because it can be something that can key you in on, hey, this might be a worse situation than what ownership is reflecting.
Yeah, so as far as the kickers, if I had to roster one, I lean towards Butker just because I think the Chiefs score more points in the game than what the Denver Broncos do. But earlier in the day, I was building lineups, I was getting to a good amount of Harrison Butker. And then, you get more and more information about the weather. And I'm, starting to get a little scared of playing the kickers in this game. Because it could be one of those spots where it's just so terrible the kickers can't make kicks. And then teams just say, you know what, screw it. We're just going for it on 4th downs. We're going for it on 2-point conversions, which would be suboptimal if you're rostering captains for today. As far as defenses, I have a little bit of interest here in the Chiefs defense because Russell Wilson has been largely abysmal the last couple of years. If you're going to add wind into the mix, it does open up the possibilities for some wayward passes to get picked off by Russell Wilson. So I do have some interest in the Chiefs defense. Any other further takes you have for tonight's slate that we haven't mentioned over the course of the show, Eric?
I think this is a really good one to be leaving salary on the table because the projections, how tight everything is once you drop below drop below Cortland Sutton, or once you drop below Williams, really everybody in the entire range is projected for less than 8 fantasy points. Basically, that's wild. Harrison Butker has the highest of the projections sitting below that range. That is an awesome showdown slate. So really be paying attention to ownership, be conscious of the plays that you really want to be overweight to, that you think might be underutilized, and leave some damn salary on the table.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stick around because right after this, we've got Loughran and Orfield. They're going to be breaking down this slate on Live Before Lock. So any injury news that breaks, they're going to have you guys covered as well as their takes on the game. So stick around. Good luck tonight. See you guys back here tomorrow.
Consider me Miles Davis, Neil.
That's a good quote. That's I know it's Adam Sandler. I'm trying to think which one it is. It's the one where he goes, Billy Madison.
No, that's Click.
That's not Click. That's Billy Madison. I've never seen Click, so I know it's not Click.
I used to love Billy Madison, man.
Me too.
My dad and I would watch that. That and The Replacements. Remember The Replacements with Keanu Reeves?
I've never seen the
Oh,
Replacements.
dude, it's so good.
Is
and I
Adam
probably
Sandler
think
in?
it's great because I have memories of watching it with my pops.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
like, you got to watch it.
All right, I will.
Yeah, it's like if it's a feel good flick, you know, pretty good, and it's football.
I like a good feel good flick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Madden's in it. Pat, yeah,
No way.
like, just check it out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Live before lock. Boy, do we have a game on our hands today. Denver Broncos, 10.5-point dogs against the Kansas City Chiefs. I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but not really. I mean, Neil put out a great thread on the Stochastic Twitter today, and at the end of it, he basically was talking about how unique this game really is. And it's super unique, too, because like this is no longer a Chiefs team where you have to choose between Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, or just like full out Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, and Kelce, and then everyone else is $600. It's a banged up Travis Kelce with a heavily taped ankle and a bunch of other guys with target shares at 13% or lower. So it really is a weird slate. And then you just have a bad Broncos team on the other side, but it's a divisional spot. We'll see what happens. We're going to break it all down, and we're happy to have you guys here. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second, atone for your sins here. Don't make me ask you twice. I'm kidding. This is what I would say. Don't ask Neil to don't make Neil throw the hex out there and make life tough and say we can't get to 500. We can. We always do, and we will, because you guys are the greatest. Subscribe to the channel too if you haven't done so yet. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafay_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D, with the Showdown Shaman himself, Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS. What's up, man?
Not much. Happy to be here. I was just I was telling you before, I actually didn't get into the reason I've had a couple beers already is I was just my nephew is playing a football game like 2 blocks away from my house. Like their family lives on the other side of the Twin Cities from me. They live on the other side of Minneapolis from me. So like 30-minute drive to their place. I haven't been to one of his football games yet. Then they happened to come to St. Paul. So I was just over at local high school watching my nephew play football, and of course stopped to the bar with my brother-in-law, had a couple beers there. So yeah, it's been a fun day. Get to watch a little freshman high school football. They were losing when I left, so that was kind of unfortunate, but in general, happy to be talking about this slate. As you said, it's a pretty weird slate. The weirdest thing about it is just like the number of viable players is astronomical. Like I was trying to make a thread, and like a lot of the times I make those threads and I'm like, okay, here are your stud options, the guys who project really well. Here are your value options, guys who are great point per dollar plays, and then here are your off the wall plays. And it's like there are like 10 guys I still didn't get to after naming all of those. Usually it's like 1 or 2 more that I'm like, yeah, I might play him in my field. There are a ton of guys that I didn't even mention in my thread today that I normally would. It's just one of those slates where there's a lot of viable options
Across the board, it's everything. Yeah.
And the weird thing is they're not great. Like, it's not like they're all like, oh yeah, these guys are like awesome options. It's like, there are a few guys who are like, yeah, they project really well. And then it's a bunch of like, yeah, if he scores a touchdown, he might be optimal.
Yeah. Like, well, Isaiah Pacheco being one of them, I think is in a great spot against this run defense. You know, they've been just gutted every single time. The only time they haven't been was earlier in the season. I forget who it was that finished with only, it was, matter of fact, I'm sorry, it was week 1 against the Raiders. Outside of that, they've been carved up on the ground. 350 yards on the ground allowed to Miami. Washington racked up a bunch of rushing yards on them. Chicago did. Last week, 220 or so yards for the Jets. So really interesting spot. And then on the other side, though, you've got Javonte Williams. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Javonte Williams starts getting the bulk of opportunities here, but we'll see. McLaughlin didn't look bad in Williams' stead last game. P. Ryan's still involved as a pass catcher, but yeah, it's funny looking at that week 4 before he got hurt. Williams played 8 snaps and had 5 touches. You know, he touched the ball 5 times on the first 8 plays. I'm assuming he was out there or at least, the 8 plays he was out there, he touched the ball 5 times. But anyway, we're going to break it all down. Glad you guys can hang with us today. By the way, I did a little look ahead, and the next good Thursday game is 2 weeks from now. Matter of fact, it is on opening week of NBA season. and
Okay.
it's the Bucks and the Bills. That should actually be a fun game.
The Bucks? You're excited about a Bucks game?
The Bucks and the Bills, dude. The Bucks are not a bad football team.
They have surprised me. Like they're a team that I wrote off. I did not draft a lot of them in best ball. Kind of thought they were going to suck this year, and they've been competitive. Yeah.
I think they cover this week against the Lions too. Like I think.
Wow. So who do we have next week that we're skipping over that is not a good Thursday night football game?
Oh, it's not good. Jags.
Love the Jags. That's fun.
Jags and Saints.
Yeah, not as fun.
The Saints are a tough team to watch is the problem.
I know. Yeah.
Great defense.
They got
but
Kamara
that
back.
offense just is brutal to watch.
Yeah.
I think Bucks and Bills will be a pretty fun game. I think so.
It probably will be. Yeah.
Listen, okay. If nothing else, you can't tell me, you just simply cannot tell me that for a Thursday night football game, that's not a good matchup.
No, I mean, it's fun. I love most Thursday night football games. Like tonight is going to be a fun game, even though it's like, yeah, the Chiefs are probably going to win. They're probably going to crush them. It's still kind of fun.
Yeah, it's all disgusting, but let's do it, man. Let's get into it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us and those who have already tapped that thumbs up and helped support the channel around here. It goes a long way. All right. So by the way, I'm catching a cold this same time every year. The seasons start to change.
Is it allergies?
No,
Maybe?
it's a cold. It's a cold.
Okay.
It's got to be a cold. It's maybe it is allergies because it's not usually with a cold. It hits me and then 10 hours later, 8 hours later, I just feel like dog shit. But this one's just kind of lingering. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's allergies. I don't know. But I get a cold and the seasons change in the Northeast every single year. It's the one time I'm guaranteed to get sick. So we'll play it by ear. Anyway, let's get into it. I want to talk to you. We always like say we're going to go position by position, but you and I kind of like to take some U-turns, some left turns, some right turns, wherever the conversation, wherever the slate takes us. I actually want to start with the Chiefs and the passing game, specifically talking about Mahomes and Kelsey, because Kelsey's going to play. What are your concerns or even just thoughts on Kelsey's potential maybe limitations today? Performance. He still has a reception prop at 6.5. I think I'd probably go under on that if I was taking a side. I know Eric mentioned he liked it this morning on the matchup show, but I mean, heavily taped ankle. The last time they played was Sunday. It's Thursday. So they've only had a few days rest. Is this a spot where, and the reason I ask you is because if you're playing Mahomes at the captain spot, how many of those lineups are also going to have Travis Kelce?
Yeah, so my biggest concern with Travis Kelce tonight is that he's going to absolutely bury me. It's the same concern I have basically every Chiefs showdown slate. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be underweight to the field on Kelce, and then he's going to score. He's going to have 4 catches for 4. I'm pretty sure that happened last year. Like 4 catches for 4 touchdowns last year was something that happened on the Chiefs showdown slate. I don't remember. I just remember it being infuriated. It was like, I'm going to take shots on all these other guys. And it's like, yeah, they use them. They don't really use Kelce. And then they're on the 2-yard line. They just throw it to Kelce for a touchdown every single time. I feel like tonight, like, those of us who are inclined
Las
to
Vegas,
fade
week
Kelce,
5.
was it actually 4 touchdowns?
Well, it was 7 receptions for 25 yards.
Okay, yes.
And 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, just the most frustrating showdown slate of all time. I feel like so those of us who want to fade Kelce, because he's going to have a ton of ownership, we're trying to be unique. We want to just like hope for a Sky Moore touchdown or a Rashee Rice or whatever, somebody else scoring the touchdowns instead of Kelce. We're going to fade Kelce. And then of course this, and now we're emboldened by the fact that we thought he had a high ankle sprain like 4 days ago. We were like, okay, Kelce might be out for a while. Now he's playing. So we're thinking maybe he's a little bit more banged up than they're letting on. Gives us extra reason to fade Kelce. He was getting ownership. And now he's just going to score his 4 touchdowns again and be Travis Kelce. That is my biggest worry. And I think that it's not extremely unlikely. So that is my biggest concern with Kelce. But yeah, I think that he is a player who's going to get more ownership than he should. Just like in a general game, he gets more ownership than he should in a showdown slate. And then especially with when you add in the injury, like there is risk associated with Kelce. He'll probably be in fewer than half of my lineups. And I still think he is Travis Kelce. The fact that he's playing, like he doesn't have a high ankle sprain. He has a low ankle sprain. He's probably going to be very involved and he's probably going to make me regret it. But yeah, I'm going to be underweight to the field on Kelce. I'm going to have Mahomes in just about every lineup I make.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Look, the question I have now is when you're looking at Mahomes and you're looking at that price point compared to say Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson could be playing from behind quite a bit today.
True.
But also at the same time, the only, and you won't disagree with me on this because, well, you can't. The only time that the Chiefs this season have really had an insane offensive explosion was against the Chicago Bears. That's it. Offensive struggles against Detroit. Obviously, Kelsey was out. Kadarius Toney was the Lions' best offensive player in that game. On the other side, Jags 17 points, but the defense held strong. Jets 23. We saw Mahomes get picked off a couple times in that game. Really struggled. Some may say the refs bailed him out. And then Minnesota 27 points. Sure, that's still a good, but it's not crazy from the Chiefs. Now the difference is that this Denver defense is terrible. I don't know. Maybe they get up for it. Maybe they don't. But what I can say is that Russell Wilson, despite how bad the Broncos have been, Wilson hasn't been that bad. I mean, 11? What if I told you that they were 1-4, and he had 11-2 touchdown to interception ratio, and had multiple 300-yard performances, something he hadn't accomplished since week 1 of last season. He hasn't been bad.
No. Yeah, I mean, Wilson certainly has been playing well so far this year. I don't expect the defense to get up for this game for the Broncos, just given the state of the organization. Like, now they're saying, oh, we're going to trade Jerry Jeudy is on the trading block. Like, they're clearly not really in it for this year. But as far as Russ goes, Russ he's an NFL quarterback. He's been in the league a long time. He's going to have big games. Certainly could have a big game here. I'm probably actually going, I said I'm going to have Mahomes in just about every lineup I make. Currently, I have more Russell Wilson than I have of Mahomes. He is, as you said, you save a lot of salary playing Russell Wilson. As you said, he's going to be throwing a lot. He is, I have more, I have 88% Russell Wilson right now. I only have 76% Patrick Mahomes. So I actually currently have more Russell Wilson. I'm also, as usual, trying to leave salary on the table. It's much easier to leave salary on the table if you have some Russell Wilson stacks in your lineups as opposed to Patrick Mahomes stacks. So yeah, I think Russell Wilson is a great play. We've got him at pretty significantly lower ownership than Mahomes as well. If you look at our tools, we have Mahomes in the optimal lineup a little bit south of 80% of the time. Like, he is getting into the optimal lineup most of the time, but we've also got Russell Wilson in there at over 50% of the time, like 55% of the time, and getting under owned here. We have him at just 42% util ownership, 47% chance of being optimal, 9% captain ownership, 9% chance of being optimal. So a little bit low owned on Russell Wilson. And if you're trying to make unique lineups, trying not to, be duped a ton, it's easier to do so in your Russell Wilson lineups for sure.
It is. And Humboldt said, Laffy, did you see his final play in the last game? It was horrific. 100%, dude. Look, I'm not saying Russell Wilson's the answer. I'm not sure he's the biggest problem yet, but what I'm saying though, from a fantasy perspective, Russell Wilson, you remember how bad he was last time? Like last year, Russell Wilson was atrocious for most of the year. This year, you're actually getting serviceable performances from Russell Wilson. I won't say every week, but a lot of weeks. So I'm honestly not shocked, Neil, to hear you say that you have more Russell Wilson than Mahomes, especially because, it's funny. I was thinking about it this morning doing the strategy show with Gajeski. You look at that price point on Russell Wilson. By the way, averaging more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes this season, which is just funny in its own
I didn't even
right.
realize that. That is insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. That's not why you are or aren't playing him.
No.
But it is funny that he's averaging more fantasy points per game than Mahomes this year. And Mahomes hasn't had much help. But usually you could get a slate like this with just a bad quarterback that, like, from a fantasy perspective, that's the same price as Russell Wilson is today.
Yeah, I mean, we played Zach Wilson, right? Actually, most people did not play Zach Wilson in the last showdown slate, and he clearly made people regret it. Yeah, Russell Wilson is under-owned relative to what he should be. I think we kind of expect, or I kind of expected, I assume you probably did as well, like Sean Payton coming in, maybe going to see some things, hopefully fix Russell Wilson a little bit. And of course, the Broncos still getting absolutely crushed, but like the offense has been not terrible. I think Russell Wilson is, one of the top plays on the slate, like one of the guys who's going to be in a majority of my lineups. He's been rushing for around 20 yards per game since he joined the Broncos. No reason he can't get into the end zone with a rushing touchdown. I guess I will add. So from a correlation standpoint, like, I always talk about like the biggest thing for me with correlation on showdown slates is quarterbacks. Like I'm very careful with how I play my quarterbacks. Mahomes, so far as average like 30 yards per game this season. Mahomes has always been one who like he'll run if he needs to win the game. And so it's usually like the playoffs. But then this year, he's just running more because his receivers are so bad. Like they need him to run to get yards. I don't know if that's going to be the case against the Broncos. So I'm a little bit concerned, like the rushing yards might not be there with Mahomes. So in general, I want to have at least one pass catcher in lineups that have Mahomes. You could play him in the flex if you really want to, because he has been running, and also like he spreads the ball around so much that it's possible for him to get there without any pass catchers getting there. But with Mahomes, I always want to have at least one pass catcher if he's in the captain spot. You could theoretically run him out there in naked in the flex. I am actually requiring one pass catcher in the flex in my lineups because I'm only playing 25. If I were playing 150, I would probably allow for some naked Mahomes lineups in the flex. But then Russell Wilson, not quite the same rushing upside so far this year, like rushing for around 20 yards per game. I'm going to have him with at least one pass catcher in every lineup, and I also prefer multiple if I have him in the captain spot.
Okay. If you're talking about favorite, let me hit these super chats real quick. Riley Cooper, 14. We still wonder to this day, is it the real Riley Cooper? Any love for Dulcich? He's going to play, and Adam Troutman is the furthest thing from a great pass catching tight end.
Yeah, so I was curious to see how he would look in our tools after we update. So we now have him at about 11% ownership, 8% chance of being optimal in the flex, 1% ownership, a little bit more than 1% chance of being optimal in the captain spot. So Dulcich looks okay in the tools. He's only 3,200. Like that is relatively cheap for a guy who, like, he showed flashes last year of just being like he's a great pass catching tight end. So I guess the short answer is, yeah, I have some love for Dulcich. I think that there's a possibility there of Dulcich coming in and immediately being like a new pass catching threat for the Broncos. It's hard to know, like, how much is he going to play here after missing some time? Like, is he going to come in and be a big part of the offense, or is he going to be playing limited snaps? It's a risky play, but at relatively low ownership, I think I'm probably going to be close to the field with Dulcich, like around 10%.
Okay. Anthony using a free super chat, member of the Stochastic team here on YouTube for 4 months. Favorite leverage MVP and favorite leverage captain for a 3 max on DraftKings. Favorite leverage MVP and favorite leverage captain.
So MVP, is he talking about FanDuel and DraftKings?
Yeah, it must be, because it's 2 different questions. Yeah.
All right. So looking at DraftKings first. So Kadarius Toney has pretty massive leverage for us in the captain spot. We only have Kadarius Toney at about 3.5% ownership in the captain spot with a nearly 5% chance of being optimal. So we do have pretty nice leverage on Kadarius Toney.
I actually like that. It's going to feel pretty gross, cheap too. But I actually like
6,000 in the captain spot.
What if, and also, like, if you were to play this out in your head, I know, I won't say he's redeemed himself after week 1, but he certainly hasn't been a massive liability like he was against the Lions. What if Kelsey is limited as far as snaps go? Like, it's totally possible that that's the case. But even so, you still have to throw the ball somewhere. Everyone thought that Rashee Rice was going to be the guy last week. Yes, he ended up salvaging. He had the touchdown, 4 receptions, but he only ran 10 routes. So, right. Again, this is still a wide open offense. Toney, to me, makes sense.
Yeah, so the weird thing with Rashee Rice is he has the most targets per route run on the Chiefs, higher than even Travis Kelce. I think a lot of people coming into last week were like, Rashee Rice is like, at some point they got to play him more, right? He's earning all these targets, and then he played even fewer snaps last week. I don't get it, but yeah, Rashee Rice, for whatever reason, did not earn more snaps last week. Kadarius Toney actually played a season high in snaps last week. He played 38% of snaps, which was as at his highest of the year. He also earned 6 targets on just 38% of snaps. So if you can get Kadarius Toney in any kind of like meaningful snap count, if you can play even like 60 or 70%, which would be a pretty big jump, but like I think that was kind of what we were expecting coming into the year, is he is going to be like one of the top receivers on the Chiefs. At some point, it's at least promising to see that he had a higher snap count than he has in the past, and he gets targeted at a pretty nice rate when he is on the field. So I think that there is a lot of reason for optimism around Kadarius Toney. I agree with you. Like, I think that he has redeemed himself at least somewhat from week one. Like, he's an NFL receiver, and he gets targeted a ton. So yeah, I'm interested in some Kadarius Toney at captain. The one that I was just looking at that I can't decide how I feel about is Harrison Butker. Like, we often have this where like kickers are way under owned for us in the captain spot, and I always have to remind myself that like our optimal rate does not factor in how duped a lineup is going to be, and that's my biggest concern with playing Harrison Butker in the captain spot is how often is he optimal, because you put him in the captain spot and then you use the entire salary cap, and like he's optimal, but he's also going to be duped. That lineup is going to be duped 1,000 times. So he looks really good in the captain spot, just 4% captain ownership, 7% chance to be an optimal. I will say, if you play Butker in the captain spot on DraftKings, I want to be leaving pretty significant salary, like at least over $1,000 on the table if you play Butker in the captain spot, because otherwise I think that you are probably going to be duped a ton. But I do think he's viable. He's cheap enough, allows you to play some studs. So I kind of like Butker in the captain spot a little bit. I'm trying to find somebody who's like really off the board who I consider in the captain spot.
Noah Gray.
Noah Gray's kind of interesting because you got Kelsey a little bit banged
I think
up.
he's interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I don't hate that call at all. What is the price tag on Noah Gray?
So that is the one issue, but it's probably the other reason that he's going to see is what's his ownership at right now at that price point?
We have him at 0.1% in the captain spot.
Yeah, because of that. Now, look, again, when we're talking about someone's asking leverage plays, we're talking about crazy contrarian leverage plays.
Yeah,
these are not expected to work. It's just if it does work, it puts you in a pretty advantageous spot, clear leverage. You know why I mentioned this, though? And I mentioned it to Matt this morning, and I was on the fly just looking at this. So we learned it at the same time. I just conveyed it to him. Noah Gray led the Chiefs in routes run last week.
Right. He's been running a ton. Like, he's out on the field a lot.
And Kelsey was banged up. Like, he left for some of that game. But still, I don't know. I'm probably overanalyzing this, and I can 100% accept that that's the case. But I definitely feel like 3 days rest, heavily taped ankle, one minor tweak to that ankle today could be bad news for Travis Kelsey. And then Noah Gray comes out, who is already someone that's kind of involved, and then just becomes the number one tight end on that team. It would take Travis Kelsey going down, but this doesn't it seem like a kind of precarious position for Travis Kelsey? He could go for 10 for 150 and 2 scores, or it's like, hey, he's just not right.
I really thought watching that game, I was like, yeah, he's going to go on the IR. Like, he has a high ankle sprain, probably going to miss a few weeks. I was pretty,
and his reaction,
I guess it is
too.
lower. I know. Yeah. Everything about it was just like, yeah, this guy, he's going to miss some time. That's unfortunate. The nice thing with Noah Gray is, I mean, it is mostly contingent value, as you say. He has some standalone value though. Like, there is at least the possibility of like, they do weird things like at the goal line where they mix in Noah Gray as a potential touchdown opportunity at the goal line. So like, he has a little bit of standalone value. It could work even if Kelsey is out there for 65% of the snaps. And then of course it is better if Kelsey, isn't 100%. If he's more of a decoy, then Noah Gray could really be involved. So yeah, I think, even though he is priced up, like he's priced higher than he should be, there is both standalone and contingent value there. So I don't hate the idea of playing Noah Gray in the captain spot.
Let me put it to you this way, Neil. Noah Gray's 3 targets per game are about as much as any other Kansas City receiver.
You're absolutely right. Like, nobody's doing shit on Kansas City so far this year. The receiver is just not involved. So yeah,
let me hit another super chat. Here's a good one. Best flyer $500 or under on DraftKings. That's a brutal question. Like, I look at that and might have to tell you that the only answer is Blake Bell, but maybe you have somebody else that's worth going to. Yeah.
So I guess they're 500 or under. It's like literally only 200 is the only real options we have here.
Yeah, that's it.
So Lil Jordan Humphrey was cut from the team, added to the practice squad, and then activated today for this game. So I guess it would probably be Lil Jordan Humphrey. The fact that he was re-signed and activated just like recently, he's going to have like no ownership because people saw like he was cut from the team. I didn't even know that he had been re-signed until like a couple hours ago. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess he is back on the team. So Lil Jordan Humphrey at virtually zero ownership. He has been on the field a little bit so far this year. Actually, let me look up what Lil Jordan Humphrey. I think he's been like 20% routes run.
That's
something
a
like
wild
that.
name.
It is one of my favorite names in all of sports. Yeah, he's actually run routes on 25% of dropbacks for the Broncos. So like, I thought he was out. That was going to be my angle. Like we're going to see all these other guys, and now he's back on the team. So I guess low Jordan Humphrey. If you have to go down below 500, which really means 200 because we don't have anybody in between, it's got to be low Jordan Humphrey for me.
All right. I want to be called Lil Lofty Loughran from now on.
I'm going to call you Lil Lofty Loughran. Yeah, I like it. No, you're asking too much. It's like Devin Acham for you. Calling you Lil Lofty Loughran. Yeah.
All right. These are some good super chats though. This is good conversation. I love when we have super chats that make us think a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make us think here. There's okay. So I think we should probably talk about the backfield for Denver first.
Sure.
I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a healthy dose of Javonte Williams. Like this team, I tweeted earlier and it was somewhat facetiously, but there were all these people out there that are like, Miles Sanders isn't practicing, pick up Chuba Hubbard, do it now. And I tweeted, I was like, give the backfield to Laviska Shenault at this point. Just let him be the guy because those guys stink. There is something to be said about this Denver team. And to be fair, McLaughlin was good last week. He was pretty solid in that loss. Take nothing away from him there. But Javonte Williams, I think he probably could have played last week if they weren't playing on Thursday. You know, he was out there warming up. Like he was as close as you get to playing. He hasn't been on the injury report basically all week. Like I think he's fine. What do you think the workload? I know it's a tough question, but these are the type of things we need to figure out. What do you think the workload, the backfield split looks like for the Broncos tonight?
Yeah, it's super tough, especially because I feel like Jaleel McLaughlin might actually be the real deal. Like I've seen people refer to McLaughlin as being like he's basically like Devin Achane light. Like he's just like a little speedy back who can make plays, and like the Broncos kind of need playmakers. So I kind of feel like he has earned a role. He's probably going to get at least some looks today. I think that you're probably right that with Javonte Williams healthy, he is the likeliest to have a workhorse back kind of a role. Samaje Perine, even last week with Javonte Williams out, like they didn't seem to really trust him in that work. Like he played like 60% of snaps, something like that, but they liked McLaughlin enough to bring him in and play a good amount of Jaleel McLaughlin. So if any of these guys is going to be a workhorse back today, I would think it is Javonte Williams. I think the likeliest scenario here is all three of them get looks. Like it's going to be, 50% Javonte Williams, 30% Samaje Perine, 20% Jaleel McLaughlin, like something around those lines is my best guess. But like it is truly guessing at this point. Like this is the first time that like we've seen McLaughlin come out here and like prove himself to be. He's averaging over 7 yards per carry, like just looking really good, looking better than either of the two starting running backs. So I think that he's probably earned himself a role. But I'm totally guessing like maybe they just go back and do the Perine Javonte kind of thing. But yeah, so that's my guess. It's probably like 50, 30, 20, but I have no better idea than anybody. Like we're all kind of guessing at this point. Yeah, they're all sort of interested. I feel like Javonte is the likeliest to pay off his price tag. Like he is basically the same price as Jaleel McLaughlin. We got Javonte Williams, 7,200, Jaleel McLaughlin, 7,000, Perine at 5,000. I think that they're all sort of interesting in their own way. I think that I have the least interest in Javonte Williams, if I'm being honest, because he is getting the most ownership and he's the most expensive. And I think it is going to be a split backfield, but I do see a world, like, as you say, there is a world in which Javonte Williams is just like a workhorse back. Like they use him and he gets, 18 carries here. There is that world. I think that it's likelier that it is a split backfield. So I'd rather go to the cheaper Samaje Perine at 5,000, particularly in a game where I expect the Broncos to be playing from behind a good amount of the time. And then McLaughlin, I think he's interesting only because he's getting like he's a clear, like pay up to be contrarian, like way too expensive for his likely role.
No ownership because of it. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, he's shown that he is electric. Like I think he's the one guy that I think can like break off a real, like, kind of 15 fantasy point in a single play kind of guy. I think Jaleel McLaughlin is the best from that standpoint. So I guess because he has low ownership and I don't think any of them are going to I don't expect anybody to get 18 carries in this game. So I would rather go for the guy that I think can put up a huge score in a single play at low ownership. So McLaughlin, interesting from that standpoint. He also could not see the field. Like there's the range of outcomes for Jaleel McLaughlin, I think, is really wide.
I think you're right, though, just based solely on ownership in this backfield.
Right. It's just an ownership play.
You're right. If Williams is going to be that much more, and like I said, I really do think there's a path for Williams to get a lot of work in this game, but he's going to be relatively popular anyway. So yeah, or even, even just looking at Pirine, there's a couple of things that you have to like. Not exactly his rushing upside, but no. He is still a very good pass catching back. And we've seen that, right? Like he's a guy that's averaging over 11 yards per reception this year. We saw last year with Cincinnati as well. He can take one to the house as a pass catcher. I might like Pirine more than both of them now that I look at this, but only because of the big playability in the passing game, especially if they go down as 10.5-point dogs tonight.
I don't hate that. I was kind of torn because Pirine also, we only have him at 13.5% ownership, or at least that's what I'm seeing currently. I guess I might not have the most updated info in front of me, but we have him at relatively low ownership. He's only 5,000. And as you said, like he's always been a solid pass catching back. Now they're playing the Chiefs in a game where they're probably going to be playing from behind. Yeah, they all have their pros and cons. I think all three of these running backs, like Javonte Williams, like if the Chiefs want to slow the game down and just like keep it on the ground, maybe Javonte Williams is the guy they want to do it with. But like more likely, if they're trying to win in the second half, they're probably going to be playing from behind, and their better bet would be either Pirine or Jaleel McLaughlin. So you can make an argument for any of the three of them. They're all kind of thin plays, but like probably better than the ownership that they're getting.
The pass catchers for Denver too, it gets weird. I want to get into that. Before we do though, guys, there's some good bets out there today. And I think some of the good bets out there might just be like, okay, so how about this for you, Neil? Maybe you just go like Justin Watson over 16.5 receiving yards for longest reception, because I think he has 6 receptions already this year, over 20 yards. If he's catching the football, it's downfield
always.
So yep. I'd rather take that than his actual receiving yard prop. I want to talk to you about Marvin Mims in a second. There's a few other spots out there that are very intriguing to me. I will also be betting CJ Stroud. This is just a personal thing. CJ Stroud to throw an interception this week. I think it's coming.
What do you got against CJ Stroud?
What?
What do you got against CJ Stroud?
Dude, I've been championing this guy when everyone else was shitting on him, so I don't want to hear it.
All right.
But plus 125 to throw a pick. Saints third most interceptions in the league thus far. A good veteran defense. I think he can struggle. Point being, if you're in one of these 6 states, guys, and you're looking to get in on that fun, delicious sports betting action, if you're in Colorado or Virginia or Ohio or New Jersey or Iowa, and especially Kentucky, use the link in the description. You sign up at Bet365, okay? Jordan can throw it in the chat. It takes 2 minutes. Literally takes 2 minutes to sign up, deposit, verify your identity. You're in. You deposit $10. That's all you need to do. Now, here's the best part. You don't need to spend all of that big $10. All you need to do, bet $5, win or lose, you have $100 and $150 coming your way from Bet365. So let's say you throw a 10-leg parlay in. You're going to go wild. It's $5, whatever. You win that. Huge. And now you've got $150 that they're giving you. You lose it. Who cares? Doesn't matter. $150 from Bet365. If you're in Kentucky, it's bet $1 of that $10 deposit, get $365 because, well, sports betting's new to Kentucky. Simplest way to look at it, if you're in those other 5, you bet, you take 2 minutes, you're making $150 in 2 minutes, $75 a minute. Really, if you think about it, you know what I mean?
Damn.
Any other time that offer comes across your table, you're going to be like, in any other world, you go, I'm going to take it immediately. I'm going to go live my life. And I just got money for doing absolutely nothing. In Kentucky, it's even better. It's $365 on $1. But check it out if you guys want in. It's another sports book that you can get better odds on. You should always be doing that if you bet sports. And now that they're new to these states, they're big-time international book. Now that they're new to the states, they're giving away free money in the states that they operate to get people over there. Take advantage of it while they throw it at you. Link in the description and in chat. Must be 21 years or older to gamble. 18 plus in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. So quickly, I want to hit on the Denver because we have to break down this Kansas City team. So let's quickly hit on these Denver pass catchers. I think we spent a lot of time here, but Marvin Mims is the guy that could give you 2 for 80 and a touchdown or 1 for -3. Like that's what he is. And I think it's still viable on a slate like this. Unfortunately, he's priced at a point where you would think that he's been producing every single game this year, 4,600, but he's just been all over the map. And then it's Judy, it's Sutton, it's Dulcich back alongside Adam Troutman, and it's Brandon Johnson. What are you doing?
Yeah, so it's I mean, clearly Judy and Sutton are the guys that are likeliest to be out there, going to be contributing a good amount. We have Sutton leads the team in route share so far this year, 81% route participation, 19% target share so far this year. Judy in his 4 games has had just over 80% route participation, nearly 19% target share. So he's actually slightly behind Sutton in both of those metrics, which is interesting. Sutton is the one who is significantly cheaper. He's like 7,000. So Sutton stands out as like, he actually has like better underlying stats than Judy, and he's cheaper, but Judy also hasn't done it yet this year. So from an ownership standpoint, that might help there. And then after those guys, it's really interesting. So like Brandon Johnson so far this year, 47% route participation in 5 games. It's been pretty steady. Like it's been right around there for every game, but just 11 targets in 5 games. So like he's out there, but he's not really being targeted a ton at low ownership. Still pretty interesting there. Mims, as you said, like 26% route participation so far this year, but he's been actually targeted 12 times. So like playing about half the snaps of Brandon Johnson, but he has 1 more target than Brandon Johnson. Clearly, like he looks good. Like he's a guy that you expect to at some point pick up more snaps. But so far it has not been there for Mims. If you're playing him, you're basically counting on either increased snap share, or he is the kind of guy who has like, he's had some big plays. He's shown some big play upside there. And in terms of air yard share, Mims is actually 237 air yards, 3rd on the team, behind Sutton at nearly 400, Judy at nearly 300, and then Mims at 237. Big drop off after Mims in terms of air yard share to Brandon Johnson at 123. So Brandon Johnson less than half the air yards of Mims. So to me, it would be probably Sutton number 1, Judy number 2, and then after that, it gets really interesting to me. Probably Mims number 3, just because of the electric big play upside, and then Brandon Johnson number 4, Lil Jordan Humphrey. If you need that 200 option, Lil Jordan Humphrey number 5 for me of the wide receivers.
Okay, and we might not hit 500, Neil. You may have actually nailed it this time.
I finally did it.
106 likes away. We have 1,900 people watching. I still believe there are 106 people willing to be kind to us. Maybe not you, because you just. But to us,
I'm not confident in that, Lofty. That's a big ask with this little time remaining. I don't even get there.
Well, we'd be greatly appreciative. You guys help us reach our goals here and support the channel. I think we will, though. What happens is people go, they just forgot. Like they just forget. I get it. People, it's Thursday, man. It's Thursday night. People are busy. You know what I mean? And then once they remember, they're like, shit, I was that guy. I don't want to be that guy.
I don't want to be that guy. Yeah, it's true.
I don't want to be that guy. Anyway, thanks, guys. We'll get there. We'll crush it. We always do, man. Have some faith in the people, Neil. All right, I'm going to turn this over to you for a second, because this is big, and we don't have so much time left. So I'm going to stop talking. Break down the pass catchers for Kansas City, not just like, oh, this guy's this guy's this, but what you're doing. You know, you've had massive 6-figure showdown wins. Did you win? You chopped a milli for a showdown?
I've chopped a couple of millies for showdown. I chopped
a bunch of times. Yeah.
A couple of years ago I had a couple big ones, and then last year I think I got 3rd. I had a 2-way chop, but for 3rd place last year was the best I did. So that was painful last year. So close. It was actually on a slate where somebody had an individual milli. It was kind of fun.
Well, the reason I'm setting this up is because there's nobody better right now from a game theory perspective than you to break down this Kansas City pass catchers. Let's do it.
So you start with Travis Kelce. Everybody knows what you're getting from Travis Kelce. If he's fully healthy, he's probably going to be targeted double-digit times. He has the highest likelihood to put him a big score. He's a little bit banged up. Maybe that impacts him. Maybe it doesn't. We don't really know. I don't really feel like I need to go into Travis Kelce much at all. But looking at last week's route participation, MVS is still just like running wind sprints out there. He is probably not going to work out, but He has the highest route participation on the year for the Chiefs. He had the highest route participation at 61% last week, but he also just had 2 targets last week. What is he on the year? He has 11 targets through 5 games. We saw it last year. It was the same story. He's just like, he's out there. You always think, oh, maybe he's going to have one. I think towards the end of the year, he finally had a couple games where I think he scored a touchdown, maybe paid it off. But yeah, he's a guy who's unlikely to pay off, even though he's out there all the time. After MVS, Sky Moore, I think at some point is going to lose some of his role. Like they've been trying to make Sky Moore a thing. It has not been working out for them. Last week he had terrible. Yeah, 47% route participation last week, which was what does he have on the year? He's at 57%, so it's actually been dropping a little bit. It can work out. It could work out, but I don't think he's great. I think he's probably going to lose some of that route participation at some point, but still, he's on the field about 50%. These are the guys I said at the beginning of the show, like there are plays who are viable, who are like not great values, not that contrarian. These are the guys we're talking about here. MVS, Sky Moore, like they're both getting ownership like somewhere in the teens. They're both in play. You can play them if you want to, but they're and they might work out. But you can't really say anything with confidence with those guys. Justin Watson, I would say, is probably the most interesting of the guys who are have been getting significant route participation. 44% route participation last week for Justin Watson. He's also just like a massive air yard guy. Looking at the Chiefs on the year in terms of air yards, Justin Watson 348 air yards on the year. Second on the Chiefs in terms of air yards is Travis Kelce with 229. Yes, Justin Watson has more than 100 more air yards than Travis Kelce on the year, with just 15 targets to Travis Kelce's 37. So he's just, if he gets a long bomb, maybe it pays off for Justin Watson. He's not going to do it all that often, but he's coming in at relatively low ownership. Looking at our tools, we have Justin Watson at just 3% captain ownership, 16% util ownership. We have him with positive leverage in both spots. So Justin Watson probably actually, like all things considered, of the receivers, probably my favorite, just from he's relatively low owned. He has high air yards, could pay off. A lot to like there. And then you got guys like Justin Ross. Like it's hard to really make know what to do with Justin Ross, because he had 6 total routes run last week. He's just not on the field all that much, but he had 4 targets in those 6 routes run. Like that is incredible to have 4 targets on just 6 routes run. Like they're scheming things up for Justin Ross. And he's a guy who has some pedigree. He's been hurt, but like maybe they want to work him in there a little bit more. Like they haven't gotten anything out of their receivers so far. So you got to think at some point Justin Ross is going to, I'm hopeful at least that maybe Justin Ross picks up more snaps at some point. Could happen today. He's also a guy that I think could play in a blowout. So like there's a couple of scenarios, like even if they don't necessarily want to get him more involved, I think Justin Ross is the kind of guy that, like, if they're up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, maybe Justin Ross is still out there. So I actually like Justin Ross quite a bit today as a contrarian play. We talked about Kadarius Toney a little bit earlier. I don't want to skip over. He also like played 38% of snaps last week. I think I'd put him behind. I think it'd probably go Justin Watson for me, followed by Kadarius Toney, followed by Justin Ross in terms of my interest in these receivers. And then it's like MVS, Sky Moore, like, yeah, one of Rashee Rice as well. Throw him in there. Those 3, like, it could hit. They're going to get a few targets. They're going to be on the field a good amount, like, but they're also going to get some ownership. So there are the 3 that I think I have the least interest in here of the Kansas City receivers.
Awesome. Let's get to some build types. All right. Let's get to some build types. Also 77% filled in owner's box.
Ooh.
We had a guy ask us on Monday. He's like, yo, can you hit me with some owner's box info? I was like, let me run the Sims real quick for owner's box.
Yep.
We pulled it up, and he was in the parking lot of a softball game, put the lineup in after we put it on the screen, the top simulated ROI lineup, and he binked and chopped like a 3-way for their big showdown contest. So that was awesome. 77% filled, starts in 12 minutes. If you guys are over there, make sure to jump in. If not, minimum $10 deposit on owner's box. You're getting all of our tools free for the entire week. It's Stochastic, the Sims tool, contest generator, lineup generator, all of our tools, projections, ownership, boom bust, top stack tool, premium Discord, literally everything. You don't need any add-ons. Every single slate, every tool, we got you covered. Minimum deposit, $10 on owner's box. It was just awesome to see that last week where we're like, yeah, let me give you some info. I'll use our tools, throw it at you. and he ends up taking first place, just tossing a lineup in from his phone, man. So yeah, that was great to see. Link in the description if you guys want to get on Owner's Box. Not only are you getting overlay there, but you're also getting a free week of every stochastic tool for NFL that we have. It's the biggest win-win situation out there. And very cool format with Superflex that they've got on the main slate. $500 first match deposit bonus on top of it. All right. How much are you looking to go like 5-1 builds and say, you know what, maybe on a slate like this where I have no idea what Kansas City's going to do, maybe they just completely rout Denver and Tony gets one and Rice gets one and Watson gets one and Kelsey gets one. You know what I mean? Like what if that happens and it's just like the 5-1 Chiefs onslaught where nobody has a massive game, but nobody has a good game for the Broncos either. And then you're getting there with, decent production just from going full out Kansas City.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock any of us if it is just a full Kansas City onslaught. I have some worry that it's going to be like a lot of people are going to be playing the full Kansas City onslaught, but it might not happen just because there are so many question marks across this receiving core. It's like there's so many guys that like they look fine, like they're going to be on the field about 50% of the time, get a few looks, you're hoping for a touchdown. So there aren't that many standout options on the Chiefs, which may actually bring down the ownership of the 5-1 Chiefs stack, even though like everybody, I think most people are probably assuming kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, the Chiefs are probably going to crush the Broncos here. That's my assumption here. The Chiefs are probably going to crush the Broncos. I think we all have that assumption. And typically you would see then a lot of 5-1s, but looking through my builds, like I only have, I think 2 Chiefs 5-1 onslaughts in my 25 lineups currently. Like it's not something that I'm doing a ton of naturally. And if I'm not getting to a ton of them, my guess is that most people are also not getting to a ton of Chiefs 5-1 onslaughts, which honestly, in some ways just makes it more attractive to me. Like if it's not going to be something a ton of the field does, then it's certainly something worth considering. It's so hard to get those 5 parts right from the Chiefs, given how many viable players they have.
Yeah, it's very tough. It's just, there is a world where Denver's offense is just completely stagnant. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely.
Possible.
Yeah.
Are you going with any 4-2 Denver stacks? Any crazy 5? I doubt you have any 5-1s, but are you going any 4-2, not stacks, but 4-2 Denver lineups?
Yeah. So funny. The first lineup that I have here, I just ran a new crunch, was a 4-2 Denver lineup. Looks like I only have 2 of them though. So it was the first one I have. Both of the 2 4-2 Denver lineups that I have currently are Russell Wilson lineups, in Russell Wilson in the captain lineups with multiple pass catchers from the Chiefs. That is what I'm getting to with my 4-2 builds. Doesn't necessarily mean that is the right way to approach the Denver 4-2 build, but I think it could work out if like they're playing from behind, they're passing a ton. Russell Wilson's just, the entire second half trying to pass to keep up with the Chiefs. I think that there are ways for it to work out. So I don't hate the idea of a 4-2 Denver build, particularly if you do have Russ in the captain spot. I think it makes some sense.
How much MIMS are you getting to right now?
Looks like I have 20% in the flex right now, and currently I don't have any in the captain. So right now I have 20% Marvin Mims, which seems fine to me.
It sounds perfectly fine to me. He's a guy that I truly don't mind being over the field on.
No, not at all. Yeah, he's an explosive player. It doesn't take a lot for him to pay it off. He just hasn't been on, like, if you were getting 80% route participation, something like that, like he would be a slam dunk play. It's just like he hasn't been getting it, so you can't really trust it, but like clearly the upside is there.
Right. And maybe at some point he does.
Right.
Not 90, but up from where it was. That's kind of where I'm looking at this. Mims is like the best. I think he's actually the best boom or bust type option on this slate because they're flailing right now. They're in trouble. Does Sean Payton at any point like try to course correct and go, all right, let me get guys the ball that can produce downfield? And if it is Mims, who's been their best downfield threat by a mile, honestly, he has.
Yeah.
When he's given the opportunities, if this happens to be the game where they do that, and probably not, but maybe, then Mims benefits massively. And then you'd be looking at him as underpriced. The problem when I look at the Kansas City side from the same, if I want to take that same perspective, with them being like not really having any quality options in the passing game outside of Travis Kelce, the issue I have there is they still spread the ball around way more than Denver does. Tony, Rice, Watson, MVS has 6% target share, but he's going to be out there running wind sprints.
Right.
Jerick McKinnon, We didn't talk about McKinnon. We didn't talk about Pacheco, but I don't think Pacheco's a great play today. You're going to get him in the captain spot. You're going to get him in the flex. He's a fantastic play in this spot. That goes without saying. You can play him however you want. Do you have any Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon? No, that'd probably be a good place to get to.
Yeah, so I actually really
conversation, maybe not to play them.
Right, yeah, exactly. I actually really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in part because I think he has contingent value. Like he'll in a typical game script, you're not going to see a ton of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I do think that like if you're building for a Chiefs onslaught, it makes a lot of sense to have CEH in there just because like he's the kind of guy who might play in the fourth quarter. Like after, they take out the starters, maybe McKinnon doesn't play in the fourth quarter. Maybe they don't want to play Pacheco in the fourth quarter. CEH could still be out there, just like running out the clock in the fourth quarter against the worst run defense in the league. So I think that there are multiple ways for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to get there. He also could be like a virtual zero. Like that's clearly in the range of outcomes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but that's why he's getting 7% ownership. And at 7% ownership, I feel like this is the kind of game script where I'm like, his ownership has come up a little. We have him at 9% now in the flex and 0.6% in the captain. So it has come up a little bit, but still not a ton of ownership for a guy who is 1,000. I think that he's I'm not far over the field right now, so I don't want to overstate my interest there, but I'm a little bit overweight to the field on Clyde Edwards-Helaire just because I think there are game scripts where like he ends up running the clock out in the fourth quarter and he's cheap enough that like score one touchdown, he might be optimal. So I do think that I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. McKinnon a little bit, like he's tougher for me because he's 5,200. He's more likely to get there than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like more likely to have opportunities than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But he's also getting a little bit more ownership. He also, I don't think, would benefit from a Chiefs blowout. He would benefit more from like a game where it's a really competitive game, which certainly could happen. But I don't think that there's like a way where he becomes the guy for Kansas City, where I think CEH, like if Pacheco gets hurt, CEH probably comes in, takes over the Pacheco role. If there's a blowout, CEH comes in. I think McKinnon is kind of like, he's probably just got the McKinnon role. Like regardless, he's just like, he is the pass catching back who he has clear like big play upside. We've seen it last year. He had some huge games in the passing game. That is certainly possible, but he only has 7 carries on the year. He's more of a pass catching back. So he'd be more interested in a game where like the Chiefs are not favored. And here I think it's just more likely that the Chiefs blow him out. So yeah, McKinnon looks fine. Currently I don't have any McKinnon, and I don't think I'm going to force myself to correct that. I think like probably if you have 25 lineups and you haven't settled on your lineups yet, it would probably make sense to have some McKinnon shares, but I don't think I'm going to force it in there today.
It happens to me all the time, and I hate not getting any Jerick McKinnon. I hate it.
It's scary. Like he had a few weeks ago, he had
two touchdowns,
receiving touchdowns, and they're like, yeah, they just like give him the ball on the goal line. It's always within the realm of possibility for Jerick McKinnon, or he could have a 50-yard touchdown. Like he's a guy that he's unpredictable to me, but today I don't have any. I'm just gonna, if he scores a touchdown, I'm probably dead.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Because also you're going to have a good amount of exposure to all of these other cretins on Kansas City, and it's just going to take away from them. So
yep, exactly.
Yeah. CMOS asks top 5 owned receivers. I assume you're talking about ownership and not exposure. So that would be, let's see here. And it's tough. I guess we'll give utility ownership, Neil.
Yes. So in terms of utility ownership,
Sutton, Judy, Rice, Tony, Watson. Sutton, Judy, Rice, Tony, Watson. I love Watson at that price. I love him.
Yeah, he's a great play at 2,200.
He only needs one.
He is my highest exposed receiver, by the way, Justin Watson.
Is he?
Yeah, I got. My latest run, I have lower ownership on these receivers than any previous run. My highest exposed is Justin Watson at 24% in my 25 lineups.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Yeah. You know what? It's like we talked about Mooney last week. He had 3 deep targets. They just didn't connect. He was targeted 3 times downfield, 20 plus yards downfield. And
right. Like you don't know if he's going to catch it or not. All you can do is hope for the best.
Right. DJ Moore was targeted 4 times downfield. Caught 3 of them for 2 touchdowns.
What a game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying on the deep balls, he had 2 touchdowns. He had 3 total, but yeah. And obviously DJ Moore is exponentially better than Darnell Mooney, but we work with what we have to work with here. And I was getting so many tweets when that happened. These guys are like, yo, he's hitting DJ Moore everywhere, but every time he throws to Mooney downfield, it's nowhere near him. But
yeah, he just could not throw to anybody. Like that was the frustrating thing. It's like the one chalky guy is the one guy that he can throw it accurately to. Yeah. It's like, come on, man.
Right. That was the thing. It's not like Moore did something, supernatural to get the ball. It wasn't like superhuman performance. Granted, he was awesome. Yeah. But he couldn't actually get the ball to other guys.
Equinemius St. Brown. So my big stand last week was I had a ton of Equinemius St. Brown. He couldn't throw it to him laterally. I was like, come on. Just threw it away when he was just throwing laterally to it. Just come on.
I know.
Come on.
All right. Final question. And thanks to all you guys for hanging out, supporting the show. Appreciate you big time. And all the 1,300 that are still hanging with us, even though we're going up until lock. Who is going to be the optimal captain? I said Jacobs last time. I think I was 0.3 off because Ben would have chopped a milli if Jacobs had that carry and McDaniels didn't. Assuming Jacobs picked up 3 yards.
Yep.
Ben chops the milli. It ended up being Myers, and I think he edged him out by a couple tenths of a point.
So I want to pat myself on the back and then take it back because you asked me who is my favorite captain on that slate. And I said Jacoby Myers is my favorite captain. And then later you asked me, who do you think is going to be the optimal captain?
You changed it to
Adams?
I
said Devontae Adams. I didn't change it. It was just it's here's my favorite. Here's the one who's most likely to be. And then Devontae Adams is horseshit that game. Didn't do anything. Seemed like he was more of a decoy. In this game, who do I think is going to be?
Who's your favorite? I mean, it's already 8:15, but this is just as fun. This is just for record keeping, right?
Sure.
Who's your favorite captain and who is the captain? Who do you think will be? I'll tell you mine right now. My favorite captain, Pacheco. I want to say my favorite captains are Pacheco and Wilson, but I think the optimal will probably be Mahomes.
I'm going to say my favorite is Kadarius Toney. This is what we said earlier. Kadarius Toney, I think, is a really interesting captain. But yeah, I agree with you. Mahomes is just by far the most likely to be the optimal captain. I shouldn't say by far. Let me actually look. What is our in terms of the captain spot optimal? We have Mahomes at 14. Or no, we actually have Kelsey ahead of Mahomes. I would say Mahomes though. If I had to guess, it would be Mahomes.
Okay, I like it. Hey, follow Neil at PlayerQDFS and our stochastic Twitter handle too. You've been putting out some really great threads on there for these showdown slates. If that stuff is valuable to you guys, it should be. But you should check that out. Follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. We'll see you back here Monday night for a game that I don't know what it is. Peace.
Me neither.